Now, before we start this video, let me tell you guys, I have actually started a new channel related to this podcast right here. This is a video podcast in which I talk about teaching English in China. And there will be a whole separate channel for those of you who are interested in teaching specifically. So go over to that channel, link will be down below, and please subscribe and leave comments and suggestions for videos you'd like to see. This will be a video podcast as well as standalone videos from me or maybe some of the other guys or some of the other ladies. We'll see, okay? Please go over and check it out again. Thank you very much. Let's get going.
We're going.
All right. We're going. We'll do it live, and we're doing it live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Teaching in China video podcast, maybe audio podcast, if I'm feeling particularly ambitious. We don't know. We may never know. Okay? So what is this all about? It is about teaching in China. This episode, I am with 3 other guys who are teaching at universities here in Chengdu. So we're just going to talk about the general experience of teaching at universities here in China, and we'll go around, we'll get everyone to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into it, okay? So what about you? What's your story? Who are you?
My name's Peter. I've been teaching for 5 years now. I've taught in South Korea, in South America, in South Africa, and now in China.
All right, there you go. Southwest China, so we're keeping south all the way through. All right?
Okay, so my name is Bass. I'm from England. I've been teaching for about 5 years in China at university level. Yeah, I guess, yeah. Got some experience and yeah, quite happy to be.
sounds really exciting, doesn't it? I'm a good one to know.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at the pillow. Also from the UK. My name's Joey. I'm in my 3rd year teaching at Sichuan University here in West China.
Okay. All right. So now we know who everyone is. Let's just jump into it. So, what's kind of the first thing you think people need to know? I think one thing is we need to know what kind of resources classrooms have here in China, and like what the classrooms generally look like. So, like, we're all in different classrooms. So, like, why don't you tell me about the place that you guys teach? So, like, for example, my classroom is, I'm in a couple. One, the students are in these kind of half desks that you'll see at American high schools. It's got a basket underneath and then a sort of half desk where they can put a, you know, they can write and things like that.
Table chair.
Yeah, it's a table chair, and then there's a whiteboard, and you know, it's not the best thing, but my other classrooms, I've got a touchscreen monitor with projector and PowerPoint and all that kind of stuff. So that's generally what mine look like. So what about you?
Yeah, I've got a large classroom that can take about 50 students, 60 students.
Yeah.
And luckily, all of my tables are movable, so I can create different shapes and get different working patterns going, which is quite nice. There's a good projector, there's a good whiteboard. There's actually multiple whiteboards in the room, so it's nice. You can get students doing stuff on different whiteboards as well.
I don't have that in mind. Interesting. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, actually pleasantly surprised by the classrooms. They're, great technology, projectors, smart boards, like you said as well. You know, you've got like a big whiteboard on the left, a big whiteboard on the right, and then like a screen in the middle. In terms of, tables and chairs, most of them seem to be movable. That's great for students to practice oral English. Rather than sitting in that line, sitting in a row, you can move things around. I would say that it's pretty well set up. Well, you can make it well set up for oral English for your students.
Mm-hmm.
You lucky teachers. Whiteboards? What are they?
Still got chalkboards.
Due to the limitations of the postgraduate building, which is where I teach, we're still in 1991, so it's chalk and talk. There is a computer in the room that goes to a sometimes faulty overhead projector that takes a while to...
with transparencies and stuff.
Not quite that.
I've taught with those as well.
It is digital.
Yeah.
But it's a blackboard. So in my classroom, you kind of can't rely on the technology too much. Always have to have a backup just in case the computer doesn't work, which is susceptible to doing. As for seating, mine are drilled in rows, so can't move a thing. So I have to be much more creative with how I carousel and move students around. But it's my 3rd year now, and I've kind of got some good methods to do that. But yeah, not as adaptable and flexible as how you guys are set up.
Okay, so basically all of the classrooms, they have PowerPoint, they've got a projector, they've got a screen, in media, speakers, I'm assuming, so you can play videos and whatnot. I've noticed that because I've studied at a university in China and I've taught at 4 others. So like I've noticed that at all 5 universities, pretty much every classroom will have that, going for it. So, anyone who's planning on coming to China, you can, of course, load up the PowerPoints, get the videos, use the media in the classroom. That's really great. Okay. So why don't we talk about class size? I want to talk about class size. So generally speaking, what are your class sizes?
I have anywhere between 13, which was my smallest class last year, which was made up of dance, music, and law students. Bit of a melting pot. That was a tough one. Up to classes of 40 to 50 shared major students.
Sure.
The classrooms tend to hold up to about 50 or 60, I think, but usually it's no more than 40. My average class size, I'd say, is 37, 38 students,
Yeah, the class sizes can really vary, can't they? You can be quite lucky to get a class of about, 20 students.
Yeah.
And a little bit unlucky to get a class of perhaps close to 50, sometimes even more than 50.
But don't you think there's something, if you get less than 20, it starts to sort of change the dynamics of
it really
what you're
does, yeah.
planning? Like, if you end up with 10 and you're like, I wanted everyone to speak to 20 people today, and it's like, oh...
Yeah. I don't like under 20. Just honestly, like under 20 is really, it gets tough.
There can sometimes be a sort of like an awkward quietness to the class sometimes.
It's like everyone can hear what I'm saying, like
if you're jumping
louder, it's chaos.
Yeah.
If you're jumping from like your first class of the day is like 40 kids, and then your second class of the day is like 20. Actually, you really have to adapt to those sort of changing dynamics. It's like a heat in the room, isn't it? That you have to adapt to.
An energy.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we can do there actually is, you teach the same things, you have the same lesson plan. It's just the classes with smaller students are just a bit luckier because they get a little bit more talking time with the teacher, I think. And there's there's not really that much we can do to control that. The class length that we teach is not very long. Well, different for you, Joey, but for us, it's 45 minutes per class, and if you've got 50 students, it's tough to get to everyone.
That's a lot of students in a little bit of time, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, that is something we should mention as well, is the length of classes. So before I came to my current university, I only ever taught 90-minute lessons. Like it was either 40 minutes, 10-minute break, 40 minutes, or it was 45 minutes, 5-minute break, 45 minutes. But here it's just 45 minutes, that's it.
But I think the guys at home should know that. I think in most cases at university, I think most classes are 90 minutes.
That's right. Yeah.
I think it's
we're in a weird program.
This is kind of an exception, actually. 45 minutes is really not very long.
Yeah.
Well, our program is for non-English majors, so it's a compulsory course that they all have to go through.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't give them that much time, but they do give them some time every week.
Sure. I think the amount of students on undergraduate at our university, Sichuan University, like it's a growing number each year, and so I don't think they quite have the resources or personnel to be able to give students 90-minute classes. Whereas in my campus, which is postgraduate, it's all 90 minutes as standard, which is probably more format for China, I think.
Well, I think large classes can sometimes be a bit challenging. And Austin, I mean, how do you deal with? First of all, what do you think are the main challenges of these large classes and a huge amount of students?
Yeah, the challenge is really, I find it's scaling activities because, like, a class with 20 kids and then a class with, like, my biggest one this semester is 54. That's really different, I did for example, I did an activity, like a getting to know you thing, which was, it was like line up according to where you're from. If you're from Chengdu, stand over here. If you're from like Xinjiang, stand over here. Everyone in between, talk to each other, figure out. And when I did with 20, it took 2 minutes. But when I did it with my class of 54, which were performing arts and dance students, it was chaos.
Really?
It was chaos. And then at the end, it was like you got served because people were like, like having like this dance off, like Chongqing,
Yeah.
fuck you, Wuhan, you know, stuff like, you know, things like it was really crazy.
Not the
I was
kind
like,
of
well, hold
language
up.
I'd expect
Yeah.
from university
Uh-huh.
students in
Right.
China. But, you know.
I've been doing that activity for a couple of years now. I call it the hometown hua, which is like it's in the first or second class. It's how they get to know each other, how they get to know where each other are from. And although most students are from Sichuan, there's usually 30 to 40% out of the province, and then you've got like 10 or 15% who are like from fucking far, far away. Could be Xinjiang, could be like, you know, Shenzhen, usually not, but they're from these remote places, and actually in a class of like 40 or 50 kids, to see this spectrum of distance, like this spectrum of like locations, is a really good thing for a big class size.
Yeah, but I'd say that the challenge, like getting back to the original question, like a challenge of these big classes is just trying to remember who people are, like, because
It's
like
tough.
it's
It's real
so
tough.
tough. Like I don't do names really. I don't think any of us really do. But it's just trying to remember and keep track of where everyone is, because I mean, all of us generally we do groups to take attendance. Taking attendance is
But you've
tough.
got a pretty good way of sort of tracking in the best way you can.
Yeah.
Like, don't you have a fixed seating plan or something?
I do.
So
I have a
then
fixed
you
seating
can-
plan. We'll cut to a clip. Okay, there it is.
That was beautiful, beautiful
I
shot.
know, it was
It's a
awesome.
beautiful
right?
shot,
Yeah, we'll
man.
cut to a
Yeah.
clip. So, I do have a seating plan that I make with every classroom that I have. So, and then I'll make the groups sit together. And so, like, the groups, you know, I'll say, okay, you know, I had a group called the Monkey Kings. Monkey Kings, where are you guys at? They raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's supposed to be 5. And I look, this guy's not here. X for the day.
But if Jiang Hua sits in the Monkey Kings group at seat number 3 every time, over time you're going to get like this sort of almost like a brain, like this trigger of like, oh, that hand keeps going up. Do you know what I mean? You're going to get to know them. Whereas if they sit where they want every single class, that's where you're going to get lost. Like, wait,
Exactly,
I recognize that guy.
I do
Was he
seating
the-
charts and I do sitting by groups, and it works wonders.
Do you do that, Peter?
It's so
Do you
great.
like a seating plan or?
I do it for certain lessons. I don't do it for the whole semester,
Yeah.
but it's something that I would like to play with more. It is incredibly challenging to remember 450 students' names.
Yeah,
But
like
without that kind of personal relationship, it's really hard to be a teacher.
yeah,
so-
because you gotta. I mean, you will ultimately be able to feel the room, and you'll get an idea of which groups work well together, which groups don't work well together, and then there will be certain lessons where you can swap people around and, you know, just play with it. But yeah, I mean, attendance, getting to know students, and building a good relationship, those are really challenging in those big classes.
Yeah.
Getting back to that challenge of large classes to prospective teachers who are yet to come over to teach, it's quite intimidating to hear that you might have a class of 50 people. And I don't know about you guys, but I think what works really well is to use some of your brighter students in class as your class monitors or class assistants, almost like an extension of the teacher. You know, you can have, I don't know, 2 or 3 people just to kind of just help you with passing on information and helping other students to understand, or even just to go around the classroom and ask some of the lower level students if they're doing okay, if they need some help like that. It's a great way to manage large classes. You know, there's only one of you, and if there's 50 of them, you know, use your brightest students to kind of as an extension of the teacher.
Absolutely. And like some other challenges would be like, our students are not grouped by ability; they are grouped by their major most of the time. Like, and I found that to be true throughout like all of my university, you know, experience. Like, they're all English majors, or they're all tourism majors, they're all economics majors, or you know whatnot.
That's
So-
the only way they can schedule them to, you know, because they're
Logistical
really
thing.
busy, man. Like, they have so many classes each week. And I think that's another thing. Like, when I was at university, I don't know what it's like in your countries. I'm not even sure what you did media, right? But I had about 15 hours, like, tuition time. And the rest was kind of...
It's pretty light, wasn't it?
Yeah, and my students, they squeeze these English classes in. So yeah, you're getting all your students are of like the same major subject.
Yeah.
And with that comes like different sort of personalities, different expectations. I'll just look to the camera, sorry about that. Different English abilities. And although that's like interesting for you to, as you get to know those sort of different group personalities, like calibrating that at the start of semester, like, all right, I've got 40 students, like, what's their major? They're all a bit quiet. all right, maybe they're like, engineers or thinkers, or maybe
Yeah,
they're
so
just...
here's a question then. Like, what have you found which majors have you found to be the like have the best English or to be the most outgoing?
Law.
And law.
Law in terms of
Okay.
level, in terms of outgoing, that's a hard one.
Okay,
My
well,
dance performance students were incredibly outgoing, but they could barely use any English.
Right,
yeah,
yeah, they were open-minded
like
and
I was just
creative.
saying, like the fuck you Wuhan, and you know, yeah, but that's about the extent of their English. Is to curse out other cities' people.
Yeah.
From my experience, any students studying in the medical field, like oral medicine or dentistry or pharmacy, things like that, they seem to have a higher level. And what you've got to remember about the majors is that the major that they study is based on their gaokao, their college entrance exam score. And generally, those studying the highest requirement for the majors will have a pretty good level of English. So all those kids that are in your dentistry class, they all did really, really well in high school. They studied hard, not just for English, but for every subject.
They studied hard for a long time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And for undergraduate, they're straight from that process to here, so it is pretty fresh. And I think one thing, like in terms of expectations of student ability before I came to China and what the reality was, like I was really taken back with not their level, but just their willingness to learn. And it's very rare, I don't know about you fellas, but it's very rare that I'm in a situation where I'm like really trying to sort of squeeze out the cloth of like, come on. Like most of my students, they kind of want to be there, they understand it's a good opportunity, and they're kind of motivated to learn. Not every class, but I certainly don't have the challenge of like managing behavior, like really bad behavior.
Sorry, we had some technical difficulties, but we are back, and what we're going to talk about is just the kids. We're talking about the difficulties and the challenges, but let's talk actually about like the good experiences, because generally speaking, our experiences have been pretty positive here. Everyone loves to complain, but let's think about when we were their age, when we were 18, 19 in school learning a foreign language. How did that go?
Yeah, first thing I'll say is that like there are many challenges to do with like the framework and to do with kind of sometimes the expectations of the university to the reality of the teaching, but the actual saving grace for me always is the delight I get from teaching those students, because the stories every year, I've got anecdotes of like individuals and of groups who like they shine, you're giving them something new through your teaching style, and like they're committed to learning, most of them want to learn, and I just get a lot out of it. And probably if it wasn't for actual what I get from the students back, I might be questioning like, is teaching in China for me? Actually, the reality is it's easy to do compared to other places.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I remember when I was in high school and when I was in university, I calculated how many classes I could miss without failing the class. And then the classes that I did go to, I just sat there. I didn't do anything. I didn't do homework. I didn't do the assignments. I didn't study for tests. I was the worst student.
Okay.
But these students here are so great for the most part.
Yeah, such a pleasure.
Yeah.
You've taught in other countries teaching English at this level, right?
Yeah, similar.
So in terms of like willingness to learn, levels of apathy, commitment to the teacher, how do you find like teaching here different?
I find like the Chinese students actually have very beautiful middle ground, because in Korea the students were that much more self-conscious, that much harder to sort of get out of the box, to think a little bit more creatively, to try something new.
Embarrassed easier, would that be?
Yeah, definitely. Much more saving face in a sense.
Okay.
Whereas in Colombia, I couldn't get the students to slow down, focus a little bit on being more accurate, listen for a while.
Yeah.
They were just blaring out whatever they could, and so
my sister had the same experience when she was in Ecuador
Yeah.
teaching. Yeah, the students were too active.
It's such a different personality group. And in China, I was really surprised. I thought I'd be coming back to a very controlled, very like sort of timid kind of personality. And I don't know if it's specifically Chengdu or Sichuan people or all of China, but I really find the students, in the young 20s, late teens, are really quite amazing people. They're very dedicated, they're very respectful, responsible, but they've got a spark to them, like, and their minds are pretty wide open. It's really lovely to hear what they have to talk about and the ideas that they have.
I was so surprised by it when I first came that, like, I don't know what I was expecting. I didn't have teaching experience of teaching in another university, so I had no kind of reference point, but I had my own experience of university and my own experience of traveling, and so I'd kind of come up with like this scenario in my head where I'd be trying to like really get them, like trying to draw it out of them. Actually, if you have a good first few classes, it's kind of quite easy to get them to want to learn. What's your take on that?
I mean, I actually think that a lot of our students at university are really excited to have English classes with a foreign teacher. For some of them, you might be the first foreign teacher that they've ever had in their life. You've never seen such discipline, such dedication, such really fantastic work ethic. Generally just very easy to teach, and they want to learn. They want to be there, and it just makes your life as a teacher really easy.
So one really interesting point before we move on is that they've come through this system, which is, like, if you've ever visited China, and you'll know this, but if you don't know much about China, like, the education system here is very, very different to our own experiences. Very competitive. It's all like exam based, and so they come from, it's almost like it's a regimented like 18 years of their life.
Absolutely.
And then they come to this environment where this teacher is bringing a more, it's, however our teaching practices are, it's going to be more relaxed than what they're used to, and you notice them kind of going, it's okay to be a little bit myself and show my personality. So if you can meet their like regimented, disciplined way of learning and bring this relaxed and more creative kind of environment, the two can marry really well to have these great experiences teaching.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Like, because you go in and they're expecting just a lecture class. Like, even a lot of these oral English classes, or writing classes, or culture classes, or whatever you guys may have taught in the past, they're always going to be lecture if they're from Chinese teachers. But you come in and you bring a different vibe, and you bring in something different, students will like grab a hold of it, and it's wonderful. And I've noticed it really just across the board, in Gansu or in Tianjin or here in Chengdu. Like, the students are really receptive to this new thing. There are certain differences between teaching in different provinces, like, because you guys talk about how students are so open and they're willing to learn and they just love coming to class. And that's not necessarily true all over China.
Sure.
When you get up into places like the Northwest, where I used to live, and where I still have lots of friends at different places, like, students there are very traditional, they're very conservative. They may want to like come in and do that, but they are terrified.
Can't quite let themselves, maybe.
Yeah, or they are worried about what other people are thinking, which we still have to deal with here.
Yeah, sure.
To a much greater extent up there. Like, it's a whole different kind of, it's almost like teaching in a different country.
Right.
Like, it's so different.
Yeah. But did you still feel like in the Northwest, right? Northeast? Northwest.
Yeah.
Did you still feel that you could like bring your personality to those classes?
Absolutely, yeah. I did bring my personality a little bit, but I did have to make it more lecture based. I could not do the same thing here that I did back there.
Okay, because I think, like, if you're planning on teaching in China, like, here's a really important consideration is, like, don't just think about like how much can I get paid and what are the benefits and is that an interesting place to live. You got to think about like the dynamics of your everyday job. Actually, it's the thing that surprised me the most was like how myself, like, I could learn to be in my university classes. So if anyone's planning on teaching at Sichuan University, which is a very specific demographic, I'd say like have no anxieties about whether you're going to have to like fit in this tiny box of teacher. Like, there's room to really bring yourself to it. that's probably good research to do, like to speak to teachers at the institution you're thinking about going and ask them questions, not about like how's the faculty and is it well organized, but ask them things like, can you be yourself in your job, and do your students take to you when you ask them to do something a bit different? They're probably important research questions before you choose a place.
And let me just answer some questions beforehand. Is the faculty well organized? The answer is going to be
No.
no. The answer is going to be no. Pretty like I've been at 5 universities now. I've only had one that really had everything together. Like just one, where they had one dedicated person to take care of all the foreign teachers and to take care of, like, that was their only job. The others they get what do they do, like at your schools? What do? They have one person who's like already a teacher, who's a teacher and a mom, and you know, has all this other stuff to do, and they have to take care of us.
In terms of those expectations, like you're coming to a big institution, if you're teaching at university, your experience of being at university or teaching at university, if you've not been to a Chinese university, your expectation is not going to meet the reality in terms of organization and administration. And I think that is the balance of like, can you like navigate your way through the admin side of it and the bureaucracy side of it, and is the payoff of teaching worth it to you? Does it kick it into balance, you know?
I think this ties in with just living in China anyway. You have to learn how to adapt, and I think you have to learn how to be tolerant as well. Yes, the organization is not always there, but again, it's
not there, is it?
It's not really there at all. But it's the kind of thing that you sort of, I want to say, get used to.
Yeah, you mellow, don't you? You become less shocked.
You deal with it. Yeah, you deal with it.
So what starts as a kind of like, fuck you know, and your second year is like, third year. Okay.
No, wait, I really want to get your input on this. From teaching in South Korea, teaching in Colombia or South America, and then you come here. What is that difference? What was your first impression of the department or the admin?
Yeah, I think it's different. So it's really difficult to compare across countries, different kind of schools, universities, things like that. But within China, I think it's easy to compare the training school industry to a university or public kind of education kind of thing. Because in China, English is big business. So there's a lot of businesses in English.
Absolutely.
It's also an education, it's an academic thing. So it's also part of every academic industry. But if you work at a training school, you're going to be in a sort of organizational structure with a growth path, with management responsibilities, with oversight, with all sorts of things like that. And you're pulled in, usually expected to have no experience. Whereas I feel at the university, you're brought in as an expert. And you are considered to be an expert and left to your devices completely. In fact, there's
almost to a fault.
There's no hierarchy, there's no promotion, there's nothing to go up to, but there's also no one to tell you you're not doing it correctly. So you have complete ability to develop your own teaching styles within that, to push yourself and your students the way that you feel is needed, and try different things. You can do research in your classes, you can do incredible stuff.
That's a really important, because I'm just thinking about, if I was thinking about coming to China, like, it's such this massive, like, different options, training schools. What's a training school? You know, kindergarten. I've seen, things on the internet, university, but that's a really good way to put it. Like, if you want something more organized and structured, something maybe that you're used to a little bit more, then the training school avenue might be the way forward. But if you want to feel like less restricted and more creative, it's going to require more organization on your part and more hard work and probably more commitment. But the rewards, for me personally, because I work in both, the reward is multiplied, So it depends, like, what you need, I guess.
Absolutely, because like not everyone's cut out for training schools, not everyone's cut out for universities. It's really just kind of what you want, like in China, there's the beauty of teaching English is that there are so many options.
It's not just teaching English, is it? It's like different environments, different sizes, different schools, different people.
Universities, there's training schools, there's teaching English at companies. You can come in as an editor. and then teach on the side. You can do private students. You can do like so many things.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. So like, you can be picky with your jobs. You can be picky with what you want and what you need, and I really like it. It's so freeing. And if you don't like teaching at this place, just go work somewhere else. Like, it's really that easy.
I think Peter made a really interesting point about English teaching here being a really big business, and I think there's a really big difference between the training school route and the university route. And I've never worked full-time at a training school before, but I can only imagine that in that situation, you almost feel like your students are more like customers. You know, those parents are paying a lot of money, you know, to provide an education for their students in order to get a higher score in their school grades. But at university, they really do feel more like your students rather than customers, because you know that they're not paying for this. It's just part of what comes with a university education. That consistency of seeing them every week and knowing that they want to be there and they don't, you know, it's just like they're not paying for this. It really is quite rewarding, as you said.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And they can appreciate you and you can appreciate them.
Yeah, it feels like a more honest relationship because there's not that thing of money in between.
Yes.
And the fact that it's a mandatory English class that goes alongside their major, it's a bonus for them, right? It's an added thing. Like, you feel there is like just scope to be more sort of genuine and authentic. My experience right now is that I teach part-time at the university and part-time in a very, very well organized training school. And I've worked for a few. This is by far the best I've ever experienced. It's foreign run, it's beautiful, it's well organized, very small class sizes. But still there is this feeling of like having to compromise a little bit of the teaching practice to kind of suit the customer, which is the parents. Whereas at the university, you just don't even consider that. It's like, how can I just deliver the best English class I can in my own way?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is something that we'll talk about in later episodes, like this whole training school versus university, or versus like even public schools. Like, I don't know if you guys have taught at public schools here, like high schools and stuff. Like, you know, there's so many different avenues that we can talk about and we can focus. But yeah, the whole point of this one is just to get a very like broad feel of what it's like. So is there are there any other points that we feel like we need to hit with university teaching? Are there any more bullet points?
I think there's too many, and it's like which ones to cover. We could talk about some of the like non-teaching like perks of our job, which I think is a
that's
really
actually a great
thing. Holidays basically is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, holidays. Yeah, we have so many holidays. We got winter vacation, summer vacation. We've got Duanwu. We've got.
I think Vas has done the numbers from a 52-week year. Can you talk about like? I've heard him talk about it before.
So I mean, if you're very lucky, like we are, to have a very light schedule of just 2 days a week, 2 fairly busy days a week.
They are busy.
Still only. I mean, like, you know, back in England or back home, you know, you'd be looking at working 5 days a week and you know, having a break for 2 days a week, and it's the opposite here.
He's got that little smug smile.
You could work for 2 days.
The secret, like, I'm better than you smile.
2 days, and you could just do whatever you want to for 5 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of, you know, the holidays, we're looking at close to 3 months off in the summer, about 2 months off in the winter. And then there are these little holidays in between as well, like
we just had a week
Day
just
holiday,
the
Dragon Boat Festival, the Tomb Sweeping Festival, and all of these other things. And I think actually, if we're looking at 365 days,
it's about 6 months on, 6 months off.
I would say you're looking at about 60 teaching days.
Yeah,
in the whole year.
Because
in
we
the
have two
year.
days a week, 16 teaching weeks. That's 32 a semester. So 64 days of work a year. Plus, we might have a holiday, you know, or...
But just to bring that into perspective a little bit,
Yeah,
training schools that operate at full capacity expect a teacher to teach about 18 to 20 hours a week.
Yes.
We teach 16.
Yes.
So this is where actually sometimes we complain it's not so well organized. It's quite well organized in that we've got all our 16 on 2 days only.
But this is not the case in a lot of universities, though.
Actually, I think this semester we're quite lucky that in terms of academic teaching hours, it's about, I think, 13.
Yeah.
I think we're contracted for 16, but really it's about 13.
But and of those holidays as well, they are paid holidays, so you get the same amount each month. So when you go away in the summer, you're still getting, you know, a modest
Still have a
salary. Yeah,
Which
which
is
I
nice.
think like it's a really, if you're into traveling, which most people who ended up in China or want to move to China, this is not the first country you will have traveled to. So you will like to travel, or that'll be part of your history. So, you know, China's this amazing country that needs exploring, and with a job in university, you're going to have the time to be able to work and still keep traveling, you know?
I mean, I don't want to criticize training schools because I'm sure there are some great perks to those as well. But yeah, I think we all have friends who work at training schools, and they're always talking about, like, you know, you only get 2 days off a week, and then you have to book your holiday for this, and you've got to work through this and that. I think we're very, very lucky.
People say to me, "Oh, you work at Chengdu, so of course you've got time off." Like,
it's just great to be able to organize what you're going to be doing a few months later. I mean, I already know that I'm pretty much going to have most of January and the whole of February off. I can already start booking tickets to go to wherever I want to. And it's so
I already
nice
know
to
that
have
I'm going
freedom.
home at like the third week of January. I already know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But don't you think that the fact that you can look at that like, you know, it's an easier life being an English teacher. Well, it's as easier or as hard as you make it. And if you want to work hard and take other jobs, there's opportunities to do that. Something I think we all take other work. Yeah. If you need a month where, you know, some downtime, you can also do that. But having those twice a year, having that horizon of some time off to either put into yourself, to go see family back home, to travel, like having that on the horizon actually adds to your commitment to your semester. Absolutely. You know, because you've got this like 15 weeks, let's hit it hard, let's dig into it, and at the end of it there's like this reward of senior students like finish their final exam, and then just beyond that you're going to take a trip or time to yourself, and it just feels like a real nice balance of like, you know, hard work and then some rest time.
Now I want to do real quick because you're talking about motivation, just wanting to get it done, but like not everyone is that way, like, and there are certain traps that teachers can fall into, especially because we've talked about how there's virtually no oversight. You are free to do whatever you want, and that really means whatever you want.
So there's a really good transition to kind of, because you've chosen some of your colleagues, you could have chosen 3 other colleagues, and you might have had like a different take, and we've got there's such a spectrum of different type of people who we work with.
I'm like, there's so many names floating around in my head. I'm like, there's some certain nihilists we could talk about. There are some, you know, like, but like the thing is, there are some, like I chose you guys because I think you guys really take the teaching thing seriously, and you want to be the best that you can be.
Yeah.
You know, we specialize in different areas. You know. But there are certain people who may not take the teaching so seriously, and that's something we can talk about.
Well, this is one of the dangers of teaching at university. It feels like you don't really have a boss. It feels like you don't really have a manager.
It's accountability, isn't it? It's like,
it's just like, oh, well, you know, I'm just
what's accountability? What is
go
that?
to the classroom, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get paid for whatever I do because nobody's watching me. And it's a dangerous trap to fall into. So you really have to you have to manage yourself, and you've got to have that discipline as a teacher, and you have to love it. You know what I mean? You can only do something well if you really enjoy it.
I'd say to anybody thinking of like why would I go to China to become a teacher, or why would I think about going to a university? Like, if you're looking for a free ride, then do it. But you're not going to feel satisfied. You're not going to get anything out of it. It's like back when you were a kid and your mum or your parents were away for the weekend. You'd sit on your ass, you might play video games. Like, you'd have no one sort of saying, look, can you go outside, be productive with your day. You'd have no one controlling that. Our faculty is not, like, it's not organized, not policed in that same way. So you can just sit on your butt, turn up for class. You're not going to feel good at the end of it, you know? And there are people who choose that path, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here?
I wouldn't feel satisfied
at all.
No, I'd feel I'd feel like I've just wasted my time, and I've wasted the students' time as well. And I think there are certain teachers who maybe kind of have that kind of attitude of just like watching the clock.
You know, every industry has people who don't really love what they do, but in teaching, I kind of feel like the way I remember it is, at school we always think about that 1 or 2 teachers that was really special. Think about those other ones. the ones that you thought didn't care, the ones that you knew didn't care, the ones that you knew were just wasting your time in class. Do you want to be that? Do you want to be that teacher?
Yeah.
I would hate to have 450 like real people think that I was taking the piss.
I know, but the problem is some people just don't care, do they? They literally don't. Like, and there are teachers. Let's just elephant in the room. There are teachers in this country, in these kind of faculties, who get there because of their academic qualifications, and maybe they're a native speaker and they might have
a passport.
Yeah, they've got a passport. But it is an easy place to get a free ride. It's also an easy place to have your own scope, to build your own framework, to come up with your own curriculum. Like, it's polarized. Like, when I think about my colleagues, I don't think we're a dynamic team of motivated people. I think we're like a group of people that you can split into a few different categories. And it just so happens around this table today, we're dynamic people, we're committed to the students, and most teachers are, but you're not going to ever be in a team of people where everyone has that same thing, and you have to be able to cope with that, because it does sometimes feel like I'm seen by some people as just being a part of this one group that those people are also a part of, and it took me a little while to sort of come to terms with that.
I mean, one thing I'll say about the teachers, that like us at university, is we are all different. We do all have different styles, and those of us who are kind of leaning towards that more just like watching the clock and not really planning and not really taking it seriously, I think eventually it does catch up to you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You can't get away with it forever. And your colleagues know, and the students know. The students know. You know what I mean? They can tell. They can tell who's there, who's passionate, who really sort of cares, and who's concerned, and which teachers are just waiting for the class to finish.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop. If you put into it, you put more into it, the students will put more into it, and then it just snowballs, and it gets better and better every single week.
Yeah,
and it's just incredibly rewarding. You guys know that feeling when you have a class that just goes great. Like, it's just like,
it's a great feeling. You're buzzing.
It's incredibly good. Like, it's hard to even describe, but. I mean, there's so many like points we can talk about. There's so much we can go into, but I think we're about to hit the 45-minute mark. So I'm just going to have to impose a little self-control here,
sure,
and just say, hey guys, we got to go. We got to go. Like, some of us are hungry, and also the cameras are dying one by one, and so yeah, they're just dropping like flies. So I think we're going to have to just leave it there. So just thanks for being here. Thanks for contributing. And,
no problem.
Thanks, buddy.
It's been fun. So we'll see you all. I guess we'll see you all in another episode. Maybe we'll switch out one or two of you if you can't come, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right.
Cheers.
Awesome.